If your house isn't selling, it's for a good reason. And what we're going to be talking about today are the top 5 reasons that your house isn't selling. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams here in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, this is a pretty good topic. I actually do work with quite a few folks where their house didn't sell the first time with the first realtor they worked with, and these are really the top 5 reasons I've found that they just didn't sell the first time. So before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like, do subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let's go and jump into today's video. So the first thing that I've seen, and these are really in no particular order, the first thing that I've seen that have been something that's made a house not sell is not having clean, professional looking photos. If you're trying to be cheap and just trying to take some pictures on your iPhone, even if it's one of the newer iPhones, it's not going to be a professional grade level picture, and it's going to be really obvious to somebody who's looking online that your pictures are not professional, and it's not going to make a great impression. So not only is it the equipment, not only is it the photographer just knowing the right angles that we need to get in order to make the property show in its best light, it's also the editing software that they used in order to really put it in its best light as well. So you're not saving anything, and in some cases it actually does end up costing sellers a lot of money because the property sits on the market for a long time, or it just doesn't sell at all. And then at that point, you're up the creek without a paddle at that point. So, let's make sure you get professional photos on there. They're not that expensive either. So you're going to be able to recoup those photos very quickly. So it's a great investment, especially in a world where everything is digital first, and then we go and actually look at the house. If you don't make a good impression initially on the photos, nobody's taking time out of their day to go look at the house. So yes, those photos are paramount importance. Now the next thing that I've seen that really does make the properties not sell is the property being overpriced. Now there can be some margin for error here. In previous markets, we had a time where if a property was overpriced, people were still comfortable with making an offer that was below the asking price, and that was okay. Now in this market, way it's really hot right now in 2022, I've seen that a lot of buyers, if they feel like the property's not priced to where it needs to be, they're not going to offer something lower. They're just not even going to offer anything at all, and they're going to keep looking, because perception right now is that every property is getting multiple offers. So if you offer anything less than the asking price, then it's just going to be offensive, and they're going to not even listen to it. That's not the case, really, is what I'm seeing, because a seller would prefer to have something in hand versus absolutely nothing. Okay, but that's just the reality that we're in right now. So the property being overpriced is just going to end up in no offers at all, because the buyers are probably just going to be looking somewhere else. And they can see very quickly on their phones, if the property is priced where it needs to be. If it's not, they can tell that within a couple of minutes, and they're just going to keep looking. So if they don't like the price, they're going to keep moving, and that just kind of is the reality. The price of the property, the value of it, is going to be whatever a willing, informed buyer is going to be willing to pay for it. Okay, so it's not whatever we sat down, we decided together. It's whatever a buyer decides that they're willing to pay for it. So that's the second thing, and it's really one of those ones where you have the most control over. The third thing that I see that really comes back to bite people and keeps their houses on the market and prevents their house from selling at all in some cases is the property not being staged very well. Now, when I say staging, I'm not necessarily meaning, have somebody bring in furniture and have, this completely fabricated living space that all come to know and expect from HGTV, where you've got the lemons in the vase and everything. I'm not really talking about that. It could be, but not necessarily. When I'm talking staging, I mean just basic picked up cleanliness kind of stuff. If people are having to step over stuff when they're going to preview your property, then pretty much you've already lost, unless you're willing to take a substantial less money for the property than what it would be if it were just picked up and cleaned and put in order. Really what we're going for is to be able to just walk in, have clean counters everywhere, and not not have to look at everyone's clutter. So you want to take photos off the walls, and you need to make sure that it really shows in its best light. If it's in the summertime, you need to make sure the yard's at least mowed. If it's during the wintertime, you need to make sure that the driveway is all clear to snow and you've got salt out there, just to make sure that it does show in its best light as well. So yes, if the property is not very staged at all, not even very clean, then that's going to come back to bite you. This gets a little more difficult if you have tenants, because everyone's definition of clean and picked up is going to be a little different. And if you have a tenant that just doesn't really care, because they've got no skin in the game. If the property's not very picked up and it's because of the tenant, limited things you can do about that. Not a whole lot. So that's another way that tenants really can scuttle the entire process if they decide they want to. Now, let's go and take a quick break here. For those of you who've been watching for a little bit, you know that I host a seller seminar every last Saturday of the month. For June and July coming up, that is going to be June 25th. It's a Saturday, and then July 30th is going to be the next time I'll be hosting an online seller seminar. This is a great opportunity just for you to ask any questions that you have in a really convenient way, and in really kind of a laid back way that's not really a listing presentation kind of a format. So if this is something that that would really benefit you, and you're just trying to kind of stick your toe in the water and get a feel for what selling property looks like in this market, do feel free to RSVP for that event. In the description section down below, and do make sure to click on that, and I look forward to seeing you then. But let's go and finish today's video though. The other thing that I've seen that really can kind of put the brakes on somebody being able to sell their property is not providing any disclosures. So this becomes a big deal when you have a property that's obviously it's been lived in. Obviously, the buyers should know something about the property, and they're not willing to disclose anything about it. That sends so many red flags up in a buyer's mind. That just screams, we know something, it's a big deal, and we're not to be trusted, is really what that says to the buyer. That's probably not your intention. You might not legitimately know anything about the property. It might have been years since you've lived there, but you need to fill that out to the best of your knowledge. And just make sure it's written in there that, hey, have not lived at this property for, 5 years, a decade, however long it's been. But the fact of the matter is you've been getting invoices for work that's been done on this property for maintenance, even if you haven't physically lived there. So you have a good sense for what's going on there, even if you haven't physically been, there for the past couple of years. If you're just trying to get away with something and not disclose anything to the buyers because you're afraid that's going to scare them away, that is a completely different conversation, and frankly, we're probably not going to be talking with each other anyway, if that's really what you're trying to do and trying to deceive people. But yes, if there's no disclosure, that's probably going to come back to bite you. And if you're asked for people to sign the waiver of disclosure, and it's been on for a while, that might be one of the contributing factors that is making people kind of steer clear of your property and making them not want to make an offer on it. Now, the fifth thing that I've seen that really prevents people from selling their property is that they do not have any showing availability for when people can actually come in and preview their property. So this usually is not much of an issue, but sometimes I'll work with somebody and we have very, very little showing availability, where it's like once or twice a week for like a couple of hours. And sometimes we can work with that, but sometimes the buyers, their availability isn't that flexible, and they can't have it down to like this little rigid amount of time. So best practice, if we're really motivated about selling your house, we need to have as much availability as we possibly can. Having your house on the market and doing all this work for the marketing, and then saying, you can only see it a couple times a week. It's kind of like having a big launch for a new restaurant, and then just telling everybody, hey, we're going to be open from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock every Wednesday, and if you can't make it, then tough luck. So we really want to make sure that we are being as open as possible. I know this isn't your entire life, and I'm not expecting this to completely take over your life, but let's try to be as flexible as we can. Let's try to give as much availability as we can, and that's probably really going to help and go a long way to making your property sell this time. So I sure hope this has been useful for you. If it has, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions or concerns you would like to have answered, do feel free to reach out to me on my website. The description section down below is going to contain the link to that. So I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time.